everyone. It's been a while. I've taken a little bit of a road trip into the mountains, and I'm staying at this beautiful hunting lodge type of hotel room, and I got to thinking that I haven't shared with you the books that I've read for the months of March and April. So I thought I would hop on and make a little video and share with you the wonderful books that I've read during that time. First is the Reformatory by Tananarive Due. It's set in the 1950s in Florida, and it follows 12-year-old Robbie Stevens, who is sent to the segregated Gracetown School for Boys after defending his sister Gloria from the unwanted advances of a Lyle McCormick. But Robbie's sentencing isn't just punishment for the act, even though he was merely defending his sister. It's a trap. His father, Robert Stevens, is a black man falsely accused of raping a white woman, and he has fled to Chicago. He was a union organizer with enemies in powerful places, and the people of the town are trying to lure him back and set a trap to get him back there to face the consequences of a crime he didn't commit. So that's part of the reason why young Robbie has been incarcerated. We soon learn that young Robbie is, in fact, spirit sensitive. He sees ghosts, or haints as they're called in the book, and this gift of his is both a blessing and a curse. A blessing because he feels the presence of his mother, a comfort that helps him endure the atrocities that he faces at the school, and it's also a curse because he sees ghosts of the boys who came before him, who died violently at the hands of the evil psychopathic warden Haddock, or they died by fire. They died by beating, every manner of physical and emotional harm imaginable, all desperate to avoid being sent to the shed. Ominous shed. Meanwhile, Gloria is fighting on the outside to secure legal help for her brother. And alongside with Ms. Lottie, one of my favorite characters, a woman who was tasked with caring for Robbie and Gloria after the death of their mother and the abandonment of sorts of their father. She's such a warrior queen, Ms. Lottie. She races to get Robbie released before it's too late because she knows what's going to happen to him if he stays long at that school. This novel is classified as a literary historical horror novel, and if that doesn't check every box on my want-to-read list, then I don't know what does. Those three things is what makes my my favorite type of genre. While you might assume that the horror comes from supernatural elements, make no mistake, the horror that exists in this book is entirely human. It is vile and a calculated evil of those who use power to torture children and discriminate against people whose skin is a different color than their own. The ghosts in this novel is beside the point. And of course, it comes with trigger warnings of physical and SA and blood and violence. So, second book is The Correspondent by Virginia Evans. Another really good book. I've had such a good couple of months in terms of book choices that I've read. I absolutely love reading epistolary novels. They make me want to write letters again, real letters, pen to paper letters. We live in such an instant time where at a click of a button, we can communicate, but we don't take the time to ponder or pause or clarify our thoughts. And there's no attempt on our part to communicate, not just effectively, but beautifully. And so the novel, The Correspondent, really made me yearn for the days when pen in hand and you hand wrote your letters to those that you cared about. Our main character in this novel is 73-year-old Sybil Van Antwerp, a retired law clerk for a celebrated judge. Sybil has always written letters, first to her best friend Rosalie, who she met in summer camp as a young girl, and eventually to an ever-growing constellation of recipients. Her brother Felix, for example, living in France, her children, even her neighbor, Mr. Lubeck, and various authors she's admired, among them Joan Didion and Anne Patchett. She writes letters to a university dean and to others. Her mailing list expands across a lifetime, and we come to understand not only her ritual for letter writing. She has specific days and times set aside and spends about an hour crafting each of her letters. A discipline we learn through the friendship with a young student who becomes enchanted by her practice of correspondence. But we also learn of her motivation as well. Woven through the novel is something more tender and more sorrowful. Through her letters, we learn that Sybil is losing her eyesight, unfortunately, and we come to know the heartbreak and tragedy that has quietly shaped her life. And throughout all of these letters that she writes, she has been writing to someone she never names. And in these letters, which are really, they're absolutely a different tone than the other letters in which she writes. We meet a different Sybil entirely. She's unguarded, she's reflective, she's sharing her most personal feelings and regrets. These letters, however, are written to never be sent. So they're almost journalistic in nature. The Correspondent is a beautifully crafted love letter to the art of letter writing itself. And its themes, it is a novel absolutely about identity and grief and the preciousness of relationships and the ways we choose or fail to communicate across life. By the end, I desperately wanted to receive a letter from Sybil herself. It is a quick read, and it's an easy one to fall into and stay until finished. So if you've got a free day or a free weekend, it's a perfect book to pick up. So that is The Correspondent by Virginia Evans. The next book has been sitting on my bookshelf for a while, probably a good year or so, and it's Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wang. And this one turned out to be a pleasant surprise. I'm not a huge, no, that's a lie. I do enjoy fantasy, but it's not a genre that I automatically gravitate to. I really, really liked Blood Over Brighthaven, so much so that I had to bust out my mini sticky notes and place them on certain quotes. The novel begins with the character of Tommel and his people, the Quen, attempting to escape a violent culling of their population by blight, magical energy that strikes any and every living thing it senses. An introduction, I started waiting for my physiotherapist, and it sucked me in right away that I was a little bit disappointed that she was relatively on time, and I didn't really get a chance to embed myself deeper in this amazingly active plot to begin with. Heart beating, like heart racing, energy and excitement happening right away. The second chapter, however, is significantly different, and we meet Saconia, just about to perform her entrance exam into the prestigious High Magistracy at the University of High Magics and Industry. And this is a feat that is almost impossible because no other female has been admitted to this school. So this is an onerous task on her point, but she is more than up to the task itself. Soon Tommel and Saconia's lives collide. That's not how you pronounce her name. I was pronouncing it right when I was reading it. Siona. There you go. Siona. Soon, Tommel's and Siona's lives collide, and both must overcome their prejudices to reveal the truth behind the political machinations of the world that they live in, and yearn to bring justice to those who have been sacrificed for the upper class's benefit. It is a novel rife with themes that are incredibly applicable to our world today. It's a perfect example of how science fiction and fantasy can serve to show us injustices in our own world, and an entitled, wealthy, and politically powerful class of society can manipulate philosophy, can manipulate religion, can manipulate history to serve their own ends, to the extent of abusing and obliterating the lives of other classes and cultures in order to do so. Sounds like a pretty heavy book, but its setting and its characters and the action of the plot make it such a, I want to say, an enjoyable read, even though the themes are quite heavy. It is a very enjoyable read, a very it's easy to sink into the plot itself and the heaviness of the themes to the point where you don't feel too overwhelmed. It's well written, it's fast paced, it's perfectly concluded, I think, with engaging characters, fascinating world building. It's Blood Over Brighthaven is a very good addition to your reading list. And if you are teaching in a secondary school, I think that it would be a really good addition to add to an independent novel study list of books. Fourth book, House of Splinters by Laura Purcell. Laura Purcell is one of my favorite writers when it comes to Gothic Victorian literature. I'm always riveted by her storytelling. It's incredibly atmospheric. If you want to read a book that just seeps with eerie, atmospheric vibes, then Laura Purcell is the author for you. It has a creep factor like no other. And it's gory without, it can be explicit, but it's done in such a way that it doesn't seem gratuitous. It's just, which makes it even creepier when you think about it. House of Splinters is a prequel to her acclaimed The Silent Companions, and truth be told, I enjoyed this one a little bit more. In this novel, we return to the creepy Bridge estate after the death of her father-in-law. Belinda and her husband Wilfred arrive for the funeral and to claim their inheritance, the estate itself. Soon after their arrival, Belinda encounters one of the Silent Companions, and the Silent Companions are these two-dimensional, life-size wooden figures that resemble deceased family members, and they appear unexpectedly around the house, especially when you least expect it. And they look like real people, but they're not. With unsettling memories of her last stay after the birth of her son Frederick, a very pregnant Belinda has returned, and she's already on the edge. And so the Silent Companions start appearing to her, and all of a sudden her son Freddie is beginning to act peculiarly and says certain things that begin to creep her out. Belinda gives birth, almost losing her own life and the life of her babies. And I'm not really giving a lot away because that happens pretty much at the beginning of the novel. As the novel progresses, Belinda and the reader learn about the dark history surrounding the bridge, which includes murder and witchcraft. And I don't want to say a whole lot else, and I don't want to say exactly what happens to Belinda and her family, and I don't want to tell you who shows up unexpectedly to the house, and I don't want to tell you how the Silent Companions fit into all of this horrific kind of creep me atmospheric book. So you're going to have to read it yourself. It was everything I expected. It was quick, it was engaging, and it's riddled with suspense. So that is House of Splinters by Laura Purcell. Fifth book was Sunburn by Chloe Michelle Horace. I like any novel set in Ireland. I often thought myself as part Irish, but then according to Ancestry, I'm only 2% Irish, so much for that. Nevertheless, I have a love for the people, love of the country and the culture. If you're ever going to do any travel overseas, then I would put Ireland at the top of your list. It's absolutely wonderful. I naturally gravitated to the novel Sunburn when an advanced copy became available. The novel starts with, the writing is so beautiful. The novel starts with, quote, "Now is the time between birth and slaughter. Another summer has arrived, and I spend my days waiting for something to happen, something glorious, even something tragic, but nothing ever happens." Now, if that doesn't exactly capture every teenager's mindset at the beginning of summer, then I don't know what does. So Sunburn is a novel that takes place approximately 30 years ago in a small Irish town of Crossmore. Lucy is our main protagonist, and she's a young girl struggling with identity, and she recently comments, quote, Recently I have really wanted to figure out who I am. So it is a summer of discovery. It is a novel of discovery. It is a novel about Lucy figuring out who she is, about what her heart wants, what her family and friends expect from her, what especially her friends expect of her. She wants to maintain truth in her identity, and she wants to be able to live her dreams, but she's got all these other expectations that some of which go against what it is and her, who she believes she is, and goes against her truth. She has a best friend, Martin, a neighbor with whom she grew up, and the unspoken expectation that their friendship will turn into something more romantic. But she begins to notice that Martin's interest in her is shifting from mere camaraderie to something more romantic. And she doesn't know how she feels about that because she is drawn to her classmate, Susanna. And it's an attraction that confuses her and complicates her life, as she is at a time when she must make life-altering decisions. Will she stay and live her life with what is familiar, her town, her friends, her family, making a life for herself that is similar to her mother's, and her mother doesn't seem all that happy with her life, or will she follow her heart? The author, Howarth, is masterful at capturing the mindset of a teenager experiencing not just merely teenage angst, but the struggle to acknowledge the truth behind her identity. Her prose, the author's prose, is absolutely beautiful, as with every Irish author I have ever read. It's thought-provoking. Some examples are, quote, "I can't stand being on the outside of what everyone else is feeling." And another quote is, "Sometimes knowing someone for a long time is the only reason you'd be friends with them. It isn't much of a bond and it still is unbreakable." All of these quotes rang so true to my life as a young person and growing up. It is an absolutely wonderful book I think anybody could identify with. It is very much, it will very much provoke discussion around themes, and I think it's a perfect novel for high school classrooms, honestly. The amount of discussion that would take place is incredible, and it's a really good book for anybody to read. I would put it on your summer reading list for sure. It's wonderful. Book 6 was The Tumbling Girl, a Variety Place Mystery #1 by Bridget Walsh. This was an unexpected, wonderful surprise for me. I love a good Victorian mystery, and Minnie Ward and Albert Easterbrook are the protagonists. Minnie is a writer at the Palace, a circus-like playhouse featuring magic, acrobat songs, and animal acts. But then one day, Rose, a tumbling girl, quote unquote, like a girl that does acrobatics, and also, I can't remember if she works acrobatics on a horse or not, but she's called a tumbling girl. She's the headlining performer. She disappears, and it becomes clear that she was absolutely brutally murdered, kind of in the same, think of Jack the Ripper type of thing. The police insist it's suicide, dismissing her as a woman of, quote, questionable reputation. But people are certain that Rose would never kill herself. So Minnie and Rose's mother, Ada, hire former policeman turned private investigator Albert Easterbrook to prove it was not a suicide. As the plot progresses, we're drawn into the world of private men's clubs, corrupt politician, and a string of, quote, Stanhopes. And yes, I had to look up what a Stanhope was, that possess clues to the crime. And then, of course, multiple murders happen. So time is of an essence. I enjoyed Minnie, one of the main protagonists. She's a modern woman during a time of suppression. Her bravery and intelligence and humor make her such an engaging protagonist. And I also love her interactions with Mr. Easterhouse. Could there be a spark? I think there might be. It introduces several suspects. And even though I felt that it became obvious who Rose's killer was midway through the book, there was a twist that I didn't quite anticipate. So keep that in mind if you think that it is too predictable. Cozy mystery to add to your TBR list. And to my delight, it's designed as a series so I can revisit Minnie and Albert in the future, which makes me a happy, happy girl. Next book is book 7, was a thicker book. Took me a little longer to get through. It's called Gifted and Talented by Olivia Blake. Now, I love Olivia Blake. I admire her writing tremendously. And in this novel, she convincingly narrates the story from an omniscient point of view. In fact, the narrator is called Death, but it's not what you think. So as I was reading, I'm like, so is this narrator really dead? And that's the question I kept asking myself until the other questions begin, or the other characters begin to refer to her. And so then I got a little confused and realized that my assumptions were wrong, which I always kind of like when I'm reading a book. And I'm not going to tell you anything more about that. So Gifted and Talented reminds me a lot of that series Succession. So except the siblings are all somehow telepathically or electrokinetically gifted. So Succession, but with siblings that are telepathically or electrokinetically gifted. Yeah, fascinating premise. The plot is simple. Actually, there isn't much of a plot. The founder and CEO of a groundbreaking company dies, and each one of his 3 children, 2 of whom are all but estranged from him, finds their way back home to discover who has inherited the company. And of course, each of the adult children comes complete with their own massive set of luggage. You've got Meredith, who always thought that she would be the next in line, and the story behind her and her father's separation is really, really interesting. It has to do with business. If anyone is like her father, it is her. And then there's her brother Arthur, the only son, who is a politician who has a whole different set of luggage that he has to contend with, different than Meredith's. And then there's, now I can't remember how to pronounce her name, Eilida, Elidith. She was once a ballerina, and now she has a bunch of luggage. However, her luggage is definitely kind of associated to what her gift is, and she's got the most frightening gift of all. Very well written book. Most extraordinary character development. It is basically a novel that doesn't rely on plot. It's definitely more a novel that builds upon the development of each of the characters. So keep that in mind when you're reading. If you're a plot person, you like a lot of action, this might not be the book for you. But if you really enjoy character arcs and character development, then you'll really like it. So those are the books that I have read throughout March and April. And I enjoyed all of them for different reasons. Some of them were a lot lighter read than others. Some of them didn't take long. Some of them took a long time to read. And yeah, and it turns out that May is a very good month as well. And I will share those books with you some other time. So thank you for joining me. And I will go back to enjoying myself in the mountains.